Is there a second?
Yep, second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Report.
Sure. High school principal report located in your packet. Several things going on. The first one says students will be taking Iowa Test of Education Development. Should be students have taken when this is written. So they completed those last week. Right now, today and tomorrow, we're working on kids getting them made up. Students that missed for illnesses, and with we kind of hit it about the height of the flu bug as we're doing it. So we're getting today and tomorrow students to make up between one and all the tests. Just kind of depends on how much they missed. So on last 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Wallace and I met with the 9th through 11th grade students to talk about some new changes when it comes to concurrent classes or college level classes. And then Friday, Mr. Wallace talked to the 8th grade students as well, because the big change is that the Department of Ed and the community colleges have opened up college level classes to 9th through 12th grade students now. And that's what that second paragraph, according to the DE, the student still must be proficient in reading, math, and science, as evidenced by the last administration Iowa TEDS or ITVS, the state assessments. If a student is not proficient in one or more of those content areas, the local board may establish alternative equivalent qualifying performance measures to meet this expectation. That's not a change. That's the same as it was last year. Proficient on the ITEDS, according to the Iowa Department of Education, is defined as scores equivalent to the 41st percentile and greater. And then this was the change. Students in grades 9 through 12 that are eligible may take concurrent college credit classes provided they meet the prerequisites. And this was courses, I didn't include those on that, but this is what the kids have gotten. Then they saw on the back side of this page all the college level courses that we offer. Now there's still just scheduling restrictions for 9th and 10th graders, just based on required classes of world history and U.S. history and those types of things. There's still, you won't see a kid that'll be taking, as a freshman, 6 or 7 college level classes, just based on their scheduling and the requirements that exist for that.
The college credit classes cannot, the concurrent classes can't replace core requirements by the Iowa Department of Ed. So that will be one of the limiting factors. And I think it's their, you help me out, but I think it's their sophomore year. That's just a rugged year related to required courses.
Right.
So lots of freshmen won't be ready or thinking that way. Sophomores have a pretty full load of required classes, so it may not be a lot of impact, but it does open it up to kids. There's some possibilities.
And then in regards to the minimum score requirements, that next box with ACT test, asset test, compass test, and SAT 9 test, if a student does not reach proficiency in either math or reading or science, then they can take another test that gets them where they are proficient, okay, to replace the ITEDS or the ITVS. For example, the ACT test, and you see the scores there, and the scores that you see are what that particular test would have normed to say this is what's proficient on our particular test. All right? And then asset test. The asset test is something that we administered last year. We brought Iowa Central in and got information out to all students and just said, if you are not proficient in reading or math, that the asset test does not measure proficiency in science. Okay? But if they did not reach proficiency in reading or math, they could come in and take the asset test that was administered by Iowa Central. And if they could get the minimum score again, they might be able to take the college level class that avenue. And compass test is a computer-based model, kind of like the asset, very comparable to that. And then the SAT 9 does measure science proficiency. And last year we met with students and same type of a scenario. You're wanting to take concurrent classes. You can take the SAT 9 test, and if you're proficient there in science, then you'll be able to take college level class again that following year.
That SAT 9 was chosen because that's an alternative assessment, a district-wide alternative assessment that we use in reading and math to meet alternative assessment guidelines for the Department of Ed. So it just seemed like that made sense to use that as the science option then for kids, since they didn't have one through Compass and ASSET.
And there are still other classes that have other requirements. There are Comp 1. You see there has a write-in requirement. The next page, Comp 2, must have passed Composition 1 with a C or above. Trigonometry has the following minimum score requirement for math, in addition to a C or above in high school Algebra 2. And there's their criteria. To take trig, you have to have at least a 24 on ACT, or 49 on ASSET, or a 51 on Compass, or a 90 on the ITED. And then college physics must have passed trigonometry with a C or better. And I think it's I can see some freshmen coming in that would benefit and like the challenge of a college level classes they can fit in their schedule if that's feasible. So there won't be a lot. I don't see as freshmen wanting to jump into a college level class. Going from middle school to college is a pretty big leap. But there are some students. We had parents that called us and said, "Hey, we're excited about this opportunity." My son and daughter came home and said, "Wow, Mom, Dad, listen to this. This is what we're doing." So I don't always agree with everything the Department of Ed does. In fact, I'm probably on the other side most of the time. But this is one I can see constantly pushing the bar, for certain kids. So questions about that piece of it?
People who teach these college courses, are they master's degree teachers?
Yes.
All of them have to have a master's degree?
Not all of them, no. We've got, I don't know how many we've had that don't.
In the VOTEC areas,
Yeah.
they have to either have a master's or they have to have so many hours of work experience in the field. So the auto tech fellow, for instance, doesn't have a master's degree, but he has work in the field, so many hours of work in the field that he's teaching in. For all the arts and sciences classes, they all have to have a master's plus 12 credits. And all of the instructors are on either SAC or Wallach Auburn contracts, except for the auto tech instructor. And Iowa Central hired him, and his paycheck actually comes through them, and he's just placed in our district for half a day.
We talked about this before, and we're not going to talk about it tonight, I assume, but the 41 percentile really bothers me. And that's pretty low. But, I would find that individuals who just barely get 42 or 43 or 44 or whatever the percentage will have difficulty going to those particular courses anyway. And if they get only a C in some of the minimum courses they have and go on to trigonometry and physics, hang on. Now, of course, that all depends on attitude and effort. But I understand that.
Oh, yeah. Then the other part, the second part of that, just talked about the semester test opt-out that we've used last year. No changes in that. The 3 ways that you can opt out of one semester test: you scored an 85th percentile or higher, or you scored above the 41st percentile and showed a gain from last year's score, or you scored below the 41st percentile but increased 5 or more percentile points. And then, as part of that, continuing to make sure that they meet certain other requirements if they're going to opt out. For example, they have to have at least a C- in that class they're going to opt out of, that semester test they're going to opt out of. And it can't be college level classes, they can't do that. Iowa Central would have a fit if we tried something like that. The other one would be if it's like a portfolio or a project that they're doing. Some of our technology classes, they're turning in an electronic portfolio. We would not have them opt out of that particular. So it would be like kind of your regular old paper pencil test is what that would be for the semester test to opt out. Like I said, that's not a change from last year, but we wanted to make sure that our freshmen coming in were aware of that policy or procedure that we use for the spring semester test. And this is only spring semester there. Everybody, 9-12, takes semester tests during the fall. And then two other books.
Any questions?
Sometime I'd like to know the number. When you and I get together, we'll talk about the number of individuals who are C that go into this class and how well they do.
On which one?
Who get C's and go into these courses.
Oh,
Yeah.
the college level classes?
Yeah, because that'd be a borderline situation. Well,
Mhm.
maybe not.
You mentioned before, sometimes it's just the work. We have kids who get C's, and
Yeah.
boy, they get in that class, and they work their little tails off to get it going. Or auto tech kids are a good example of a college course that the kids take that